feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon.
All right, hey guys, welcome back to episode number 2. Tonight we're going to go ahead and have an interview with Robert Retu. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you got it right.
Awesome. And he is going to share with us his awesome 5-in-1 Votann list. And he's been playing Votann probably since about they came out, right? Is that
Yeah.
accurate? You
Yep.
picked him up real quick. Yeah, and he's been having a lot of success with them. Not only has he been having a lot of success, I think you went 5-in-1 at LVO as well, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Awesome. So he's been doing really well with his Votann, and so I definitely wanted to pick his brain a little bit and show you guys the list that he took to Clutch over the last weekend. So um, why don't you go ahead, Robert, and introduce yourself a little bit? Just tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got into this army.
Yeah, sure. My name's Robert Ratu. I've been playing 40K since the very end of 8th. So I bought my codex and my rulebook and I played one game of 8th and then 9th came out. So I'm a kill team transplant. So I was doing X-Wing and kill team before I ended up with enough models to play 40K. The Votann thing, as soon as I saw it announced, I knew I had to do a pirate Votann army. So I basically planned it from the beginning that I was going to have it nautical themed and pirate themed, and I knew I was going to make a boat instead of a land fort. So I've been having a blast with it. I was playing salamanders before that, so no reroll wounds, and you get one less AP is pretty natural for me. But Votann's a really fun army to play.
Fantastic. All right, and I'm going to actually bring up a picture of this army of yours. I first saw this army when you played at Rise of the Empire, and you ended up in that top table room for a while there. Let me go ahead and share. And this army, like, this was turning heads. Everybody was staring at this thing. So, as soon as I remember how to share on here, there we go. All right. So this is the amazing pirate-themed Votann army. So if anyone listening goes to a tournament and sees this army, make sure you you take a close look because there are some awesome details here. Let's make this full screen, zoom in a little bit. Now this isn't the list that you took to Clutch, right?
No, this is more like my LVO list.
All right. Look at some of these amazing details. Look at this little bitty crab over here, some starfish just hanging out on these bases. This is cool, man. Why'd you decide to go pirate themed?
So, if anybody remembers the old game Neverwinter Nights, I used to play a pirate dwarf character on a persistent world on Neverwinter Nights, and when I saw this, it all came rushing back. It's been over a decade since I've done pirate dwarf stuff, but I knew I had to do it. So I've got actually what's not in the picture is a bunch of pirate doubloons that are actually metal coins in that chest right there. So those are my judgment tokens. And whenever anybody complains that judgment tokens don't fall off, I just tell them it's a pirate curse. What do you expect?
That's awesome, man. And look at this land fortress right here. This thing is ridiculous. That is so cool, man.
Thanks. I got to give credit to the Votann Discord for helping me get the dimensions right, because I actually had mocked this up before they even released the kit.
Oh, and wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so there was a group of us on the Votann Discord, like looking at the photo, trying to analyze, and like, all right, if such and such is a 32 millimeter base, how long is it? How tall is it? And I actually got pretty darn close. I had to adjust the suspension a little bit when the kit came out. But yeah, it was a blast.
That's amazing. That's cool. And that thing, you could probably count on one hand the number of times that thing's actually died in a game at an event, I imagine.
Yeah, over the course of probably 2 or 3 RTTs, LVO, and 2 or 3 GTs, it's died twice. And that was to a flying hive tyrant, one. And the other time was Be'lakor and 3 beasts of Nurgle.
Oh my gosh, wow.
So they earned the kill each time they got it.
Was it Kit that killed it the first time at Rise of the Empire?
It was Kit that killed it, and I deserved it because he was playing Assassinate and Cranial Feasting, and he had beaten me. I knew he had beaten me. And I put all my characters in the boat, and I drove away. But he got it.
Oh, that's hilarious.
He got it. Yeah.
That is too funny. Well, this is very cool. We'll go ahead and look at your actual list, the one that you took to Clutch. And for anybody watching, you can see in his background there, he has the Forge. He's on the same team that Jay is. That's called the Forge Masters.
That's right. Yeah.
So let's go ahead and pull up your actual list that you took to Clutch. Do you want to run us through this and just tell us what you picked and why?
Yeah, sure. So the subfaction is the Emir Conglomerate. That's, in my opinion, actually, I'm thinking about switching to GTL, but at the time I was convinced that Emir was the absolute best, mainly because of the extra range, the extra AP, and the invuln save. For HQs, I used to play with a Grimnir as well, so I've got a Forge Master and a High Call here. The High Call is a no-brainer. He puts Judgment tokens down and gives full hit rerolls. The Forge Master, if you're running a land fort, you probably want the Forge Master because he can blank a hit, repair for 4, reduce the cost of stratagem, give +1 to hit. He does so many things you can't remember.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's a lot for 115 points and 1 CP. It's really, really good. For the troops, I have angst about the troops and the Sagittars on here. So prior to the points nerf and Arks of Omen, I was running 3 squads of 10 troops. But now I've cut that down to 1 that you can split in half and put in the Sagittars. So you get, what you end up with is 2 5-man small units that you can do utility stuff with. The bikes are the heart of the list. It's only like 400 points worth of bikes, but they're what win games for you. They've got to get it. They can get out there, snag a point, move block. If they're still alive at the end of the game, they can go grab a lay claim objective if you're running that. And the Hearthguard are the heavy hitters. So the Hecaton's kind of like it'll kill whatever it looks at, but it'll often overkill things. The Hearthguard, they'll teleport in and delete something. And then the Berserks, so I've jumped all around. Sorry, I didn't run through it in order.
You're fine, you're good.
But the Berserks honestly are a deterrent more than anything else. With the Sagittars, you can deliver them somewhere. You can auto advance the Sagittars 22 inches, so you can get the Berserks where you want them. But generally speaking, they're better as a zoning or a countercharge threat. I'm trying to think what else makes it tick. So as far as relics go, Warp Strike on the Hearthguard, that makes them all into Infiltrator bubble, so no deep striking near that 8-man group of Hearthguard. It's great when you need it. Yeah. It also changes the on-site teleport stratagem from costing 2 CP to 0 CP. So it's an absolute no-brainer. If you're taking Hearthguard and you're planning to teleport them, take Warp Strike. It does other stuff like letting you charge through obstacles. So I think Hearthguard and Warp Strike are one of the only units in the game that can charge through a container, like the infinitely tall containers, because you just ignore them. It doesn't say you go over them or that you just ignore them, which wow. I've never done, but it's part of it. You could drop. So the High Call has got Grudge's End and a long list. So Grudge's End is a cool relic. It changes his bolter from 1 damage to 2 damage. So it's 4 shots, and it makes every hit auto wound. So he's ballistic skill 2. If he's shooting something, he ignores Lookout Sir, and every hit auto wounds. So it's not a fantastic profile. It's AP 2 damage 2, but it ignores Lookout Sir on things with a grudge token, and it auto wounds on a 2 to hit, which is pretty solid.
And how many shots does that get?
Just 4 shots.
4 shots. So, just 4 shots that auto wound on a hit.
So you're not reasonably gonna assassinate a Tech Marine with it, or even a Space Marine captain's probably not gonna die to it.
All right, that's fair.
But you can use it. So he also has a teleport crest, which means for 1 CP you can pick him up and put him anywhere on the board you want. So on turn 5, if there's a leftover 1 man holding a hidden objective, you can get out there and snag it, which is pretty cool.
That's very cool. So one thing that we noticed in the last video when we talked with Jay is that his list had a lot of toolkit units. He had a few guys that you didn't really, I guess you wouldn't really expect them to be able to do so much, but they had so much utility that they were helpful in like every game. Would you say that that's about the same with a few of these units here, like the Hearthkin and the High Call?
So stuff that's useful every game, the Hearthguard for sure, and
Mm-hmm.
the High Call are useful every game. One of my favorite pieces of tech that isn't useful every game, but when it's useful, it's a killer,
Mm-hmm.
is on the first Pioneer Squad, the multi-wave comms array. So the thing about these upgrades on the bikes, every upgrade costs 5 points, except for the guns, but all the scanner, the searchlight, the comms, and
Mm-hmm.
it gives you a flat buff, but it also enables a stratagem. So each of them have a stratagem associated. So the scanner's stratagem is an Auspex scan. The searchlight stratagem puts a judgment token down. They're pretty vanilla. But the comms array, for 1 CP, you pick at the start of any phase, pick an enemy unit within 12 inches, and it loses all auras. It loses the benefit of all auras. So it doesn't
Oh
lose.
no.
You're not turning off the generating auras. You're preventing it from receiving the benefit. So
Okay.
so Deathling Terminators next to an apothecary,
Mm-hmm.
they don't get the apothecary anymore.
All right.
Back when people were running Flying Hive Tyrants, Bodyguard was an aura ability. So you could fly straight up to the Hive Tyrant. Yes. 1 CP. So
Oh, that is nasty.
it's a very, very interesting 5-point upgrade and associated strat. I love it. I don't get to use it nearly as much as I would like to, but when you do, it's very impactful.
I imagine. All right. Wow, that is pretty gross. One more question for you on this. How do the Thunderkin do?
I put them in strategic reserves almost every game.
Makes
So
sense.
the Graviton Blast Cannon is basically a Terminator killer. So it's strength 5, AP 3, 2 damage, but against Marine or better saves, it goes to 3 damage. And they're D6 shots each. So for 140 points, if you only take 3 of them, it's 105 points. That's actually our cheapest not troop unit, but infantry unit now that they've raised the point. So it's cost competitive with my bolter squad, which is doing 20 bolter shots, but this is doing 46 3 damage grav shots.
Jeez.
And what you do with it, you bring them in against something that has 2 or 3 judgment tokens, pay a CP for full hit rerolls, and then the strength isn't even a liability. You're killing. I one-shotted a Rogel Dorn tank with those 4 Thunder. Yeah, I lost the rest of the game. The rest of the game, but those guys one-shotted a Rogel Dorn, which was cool.
That's amazing. Well, very cool. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and hop into your matches here?
Yeah.
Your first game was against Clifton Russell's Genestealer cult. And this is fine because Cliff actually played against Jay as well. But if you look at this list has so many units. He's got, I think, 9 troops units here. 1, 2, 3, 4 Acolyte units, and then 5 Neophyte units. And then he's got all the 3 units of Jackals, 3 Rock Grinders, like 5 trucks, I think, plus all the other supporting units. And his only character, I think, was the Magus. Is that right? Oh, and a Kellermorph.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, he's got stuff all over the place, and he could actually hide all those hybrids in the Goliaths if he wanted. So
And that's what he did.
so yeah, why don't you run us through how this game went?
So I wish I had a picture for you, but basically he split. So I got first turn, which was disastrous, because if you haven't played against Genestealer cults, and this was my first time against them,
Really?
they can basically wait to deploy their whole army until after your movement phase. So I basically didn't get to shoot anything turn 1. I think I blew up 1 truck turn 1. And I made the mistake of splitting my bikes up and going on the flanks because I saw he was splitting his trucks up. And I didn't know how shooty the trucks were, and they wreck bikes, at least without judgment tokens on them. So basically, the flanks collapsed. I had a nice group of stuff in the middle, but it was, with throwing away my fast obsec, basically on turn 2 by engaging early, I had pretty much lost the game at that point. There were a a few moments where he was like deep striking, and maybe I could have Auspex scanned, but then he remembered at the last minute, so didn't get off any nice Auspex scans either. It's a tough match. Good list.
Yeah, well, every single vehicle he's got on that list has the demo charges on it. And then he's got seismic cannons just all over the place. And those Goliath trucks are actually open topped, right? So he's firing the seismic cannons out of those as well.
Yeah, and I think they have seismic cannons or something similar to seismic cannons on them. So it's a lot of seismic shooting, and that's basically, I think they're 3 damage each, and the bikes are 3 wounds each. On a 5-up invuln save, you're not living very long. Shooting.
Yeah, you lose those bikes, and you've actually lost quite a bit from your army there, huh?
Well, it's not from a points perspective. It's not that much because each bike squad 125. But from a flexibility and what can you actually do, you lose a lot. And if you lose them early, so this was my resolution for clutch, and I managed to pull it off for the rest of them. My resolution was not to throw away bikes unnecessarily, and I threw them away in this game, but not in the rest of them, because with Votann, your firepower grows the longer the game goes because of judgment. So whatever you're shooting turn 1 with the bikes, unless it's like an infiltrator squad or some kind of scout squad like Nurglings, you're better off just hanging back, waiting for some judgment tokens to stack up, and then getting more mileage out of your shooting, because the bikes will probably evaporate to whatever counterfire comes in.
Well, that makes sense. That does make a lot of sense. And this was the only game that you actually lost at clutch as well.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah. So any takeaways from playing Genestealer cults for the first time with your Votann? What would you advise other Votann players to do in this situation?
So with those 2 5-man squads of troops that I had, if I could have fanned them out and screened better with them, and then I should have focused my firepower in the center instead of trying to split up and play. I basically was playing the Genestealer cults game by splitting up and fighting on both flanks. I should have focused on holding the center and killing as much as I could, and then trying to break out. But I don't know if that would have worked. It's a tough match.
Yeah. Genestealer cults are really interesting. They just play so differently than so many other armies. So they're a little bit hard to prepare for.
The one thing that's great that I would say for Votann players, that teleporting Hearthguard squad is great, because it puts out 3 Volkite shots per dude and a D6 frag launcher per dude, all at 22 inches. And if you can teleport in to where you can see 3 or 4 squads, you can reasonably ruin their day.
Nice. Well, very cool. Yeah, you pour that firepower out. Once you start hitting things, they drop. Genestealer cults are not known for being super durable, so I imagine once you can throw some dice at a few units, they'll start disappearing real quick. But it's a matter
the trucks are actually tougher than you might think, because I think the trucks are T6, but the rock grinders are T7, something like that. They were a little hard to shoot.
All right. And I think they have some kind of ability that helps them be a little bit extra durable as well, right?
Oh yeah, they're all -1 damage, and
that's what it was.
Half of Votann's shooting is 2 damage autocannon. So that was not fantastic.
Yeah, that can cause a problem for sure.
Yeah, so you're looking
Very
at
interesting.
8 -1 damage bodies with like 10 wounds each. It was a lot to chew through.
And I haven't seen a ton of Genestealer cult lists, but the ones that I have seen, this is the only one running this many vehicles that I've seen. I haven't seen a lot running just a ton of Goliaths, and I really like this list. So I'm a big fan of all the Goliaths in there. I think it's great to have all that firepower and actually make your hybrids a little bit durable by sticking them in a truck, especially an open-topped truck. So very cool. All right, well, let's move on.
Okay.
And your next game, day 1, game 2, was versus Ryan Blair's Deathguard. And it looks like he's got quite a bit of Plague Marines in this list, and then some Terminators, the typical Plague Burst Crawlers. How did this game go? By the score, you demolished this guy.
First of all, Ryan was a great opponent to play against, and it was a great game.
Good deal.
It was decided, I think, on turn 2, because he had kind of castled up in one corner and had sent out 10 Plague Marines to hold a hidden objective on the left, which would have, because this was what mission is this? It's the one where there's like it's long ways and it has staggered objectives. I don't know. But I was able to. I did a turn one. No, it wasn't turn two. It was turn one. I did a turn one onboard teleport with those Hearthguard I was telling you about, and delete the entire squad of Plague Marines. Which, yeah, so a 10-man squad. Because what you do is you get full hit rerolls, and they do mortal wounds on 6s to hit. So they're not like regular Volkites. They do mortal wounds on 6s to hit. And at that point, he was sitting on 2 objectives, but I was able to control the basically zone the rest of it. And his stuff was so slow that it was hard for him to get back on the board.
Right.
That stuff moved. And the Plague Burst Crawlers, I think are in a bad place against Votann because the indirect fire stacked with void armor, which is basically armor of contempt. I was just saving on 2s and 3s for all of the Plague Burst indirect fire.
Oh yeah, that really knocks them out. That's unfortunate for him. Yeah, sounds rough. And you don't expect 10 Plague Marines to just disappear like that either.
No, you don't. But it was mass 1 damage fire. Either wounding on 4, either doing a mortal wound or wounding on 4s and 5. I think I brought a bike. I think I was able to get a bike squad up there as well. So it wasn't just the 8 Hearthguard.
Okay.
I remember we talked afterwards about target saturation. So turn 1, I really only had 2. He really only gave me 2 targets to shoot at. It was the bloat drone and those Plague Marines, which he wasn't planning on the Plague Marines getting shot because he had hidden them. So really, he had only given me the 1 target. So we talked a little bit about like if he had given me way more targets and had taken some board space, I couldn't really have killed much more than what I did end up killing. So I think target set when you're playing a list like this, I don't know, I haven't played a list like this, but my advice for him was push me, pressure me, flood the board more, because if you're just giving me as many units as I can kill, I'll just kill them, and then the next round I'll kill what you give me the next round.
Well, that makes sense. So had he not left a spot open for you to teleport those Hearthguard, then those Plague Marines would have stuck around. That could have changed the score pretty significantly.
Yeah, I wouldn't have teleported them turn 1. I would have waited for an opening.
Gotcha. All right. Well, that's very interesting to hear, because you look at the score and you don't think that it could have been all that different. It looks like a total blowout, but it sounds like a few things done a little bit differently, and those Plague Marines could have gotten a few more points at the very least. Pretty easily. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. One question in my mind, I remember talking to Ryan, and he was saying if I hadn't deleted those Plague Marines, they were in position to charge my land fort the next turn, which I don't know if they could have killed it. I'd be interested to see.
That's what I was going to ask. I know those plague weapons can do a lot, but against the land fort, I'd like to see that. That would be an interesting matchup.
that was the other issue with his plague weapons. He can't reroll wounds. So it was basically
that's right.
That reroll wounds can't reroll wounds against Votann. It's a tough match.
All right. Yeah, I got to say I don't see them taking it out then, that being the case. But I know that they can do a lot, so I wouldn't want to underestimate them either. But I haven't played against Deathguard enough myself to really say either way. But that's an interesting match. Yeah, sounds like it was a tough one for the Deathguard for sure.
It was an uphill battle for Deathguard for sure.
All right. Well, very cool. Let's go on to the last game of day 1, which was Chad Stubblefield's Craftworld Aeldari, and he was running a Hail of Doom list. And this is another opponent that Jay actually played against as well, if I remember correctly. So that's pretty funny. Your whole team was just coming after these guys, I guess. So Chad, tell us about Chad's list. This was a very close game.
It was a nail biter. It was really, really close. So what mission was it? Let me take a look at my notes here.
Alrighty.
So this is the 3rd one. No, that's Kevin. That's not right. All right, I don't have my proper notes here. Never mind.
All good.
But I do remember a little bit how it went. there was a lot of Hail of Doom shooting into the land fort. I remember putting it out there and basically gambling that he couldn't kill it, and he came close. I think he got it down to like 4 wounds, and then I started repairing it up for a turn. So it ended up being a lot of wasted fire. And actually, that's something I do a lot with the land fort, is just kind of tow it out and say, okay, are you gonna shoot this? Are you gonna take a chance and kind of hope that you can usually do some back of the napkin math and say, all right, I have an 80% chance of it living, and that's usually good enough odds. But I remember that happening. Oh, and I remember so I screened really, really hard. So this was corner deployments, and he took behind enemy lines, and I was able to screen him out most of the game until the last turn when I just had a major brain fart, and I moved my screen up so that I could stay closer to the land fort, because I was using that Forge Master squad as a screen, because it has 4 little assistants, so you can actually trail backwards and screen a lot of your backfield with it. But I moved it up to stay in range of repairing the land fort, and then all of a sudden Baharoth was there, and that was like a 6-point swing, because on turn 5 Baharoth also came and took my home objective and tore down my banner, and that was really stupid on my part, because he teleported in, and then he has OBSEC, and that was a nightmare. But it could have been like a 7 or 8-point game if I hadn't done that. If the Dire Avengers had been shooting something else other than the land fort the first turn, that would have hurt me a lot. I think that would have changed the game.
Well, sounds like the land fort did what it does best.
Yeah, it tanked a lot of fire. I remember silly stuff like bikes charging rangers, because I mean the bikes are just punching at strength 4, no AP, 1 damage. But against rangers, it works.
That's not something you hear every day. Bikes charging in.
Yeah.
Oh, those poor rangers.
It was not a great day for the rangers. He had something really cool in there with one of the Farseers that was somehow doing like 6 mortal wounds each time it shot. I think it had something to do with a combination of a warlord trait and a relic, and he would give it an auto 6 to hit, and it like exploded hits, then did mortal wounds. I don't remember how it worked, but I remember he did a lot of mortal wounds with it. He basically deleted a bike squad just with one of those Farseers shooting. It was really cool.
Jeez, wow.
Yeah.
That is scary. Good to know. Keep an eye out for that one. Yikes. All right, so you managed to pull that one out and win by 3 points, and that was putting you at 2-1 at the end of day 1 of Clutch.
Yep.
All right, so then day 2 comes around, and you're up against Kevin Grubb's Ultramarines. This must have been a cool game to look at, because both of your armies are fantastic. I love the way he paints his Ultramarines. He put a lot of work into those guys.
Yeah, I think he won Best Painted, didn't he?
He might have. Yeah.
He won something, I think, because he's going to be one of the painting judges at next year's Clutch, is what I read.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I think he won Best Painted at Rise of the Empire too, if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay.
If I'm wrong, then whoever won, actually forgive me, but I think that's who it was. I think it was Kevin that got it there. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful army. This must have been an amazing table to look at.
It was
so
really
he's running the Primaris Lieutenant, Tech Marine, Incursors, Infiltrators, Aggressors, a couple of characters here, Company Champion, Primaris Ancient. He's got 1, 2 Redemptors and 2 Relic Contemptors with the Volkites, some Combi Plasma Stern Guard, an Eradicator Squad, and Gilliman. So how did this army play into yours?
First of all, I think it was uphill for Kevin, because I turned off a lot of his I turned off all his wound rerolls, so he's paying points for his wound rerolls and the lieutenant's wound rerolls that he didn't get. He started out pretty bottled up, as did I, but I was able to kind of get out around the flanks. It was bikes versus infiltrators and incursors around the flanks. he grabbed an early 8 points on that March for McCrag thing, which you can do in your deployment zone now. That was a buff to Ultramarines in Arks of Omen that I didn't realize, is you can do March for McCrag in your deployment zone for 4 points, which is awesome.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. I remember I think I got first turn and was able to wipe out some infiltrators with the bikes, kind of like I was telling you about. That's the only really good turn one target for them. But then he had some really good shooting from his relic contemptors and took out one of my bikes in return, and that trade's not really worth it. I thought what I did was I just put one bike out of cover, and thinking that, well, any of his dreadnoughts will kill one bike, but not the whole squad. Certainly, no. A relic contemptor will kill an entire bike squad in one round.
Fair warning to Votann players: Relic Contemptor will delete your bike squad.
Yeah. So I remember. This is one of the areas where I think I took a photo. Was I towed the boat out, the land fort out, and basically dared him to shoot it or split his fire. Yeah, there's the photo. So first of all, we both had our flags up, so you can see I didn't take banners that game, so my banner tokens are up for the Jolly Roger, and Kevin put all his Ultramarines flags up too. So it really was fun to look at.
There we go. Now you can see some Ultramarines hiding.
This is a great image because he has the Contemptors in the bottom right, and the Redemptors a little closer, and then the Eradicators are tucked in there as well. And I remember thinking to myself, if I show him this land fort, can 2 Redemptors and 6 Eradicators kill it? And he didn't. The first turn, he didn't take the bait. The second turn, so turn 2, when I showed it to him, he didn't go for it. Turn 3, he went for it and took about half of the wounds off of it, but didn't get it. And the only reason I was able to do that so aggressively was I knew those Volkite Contemptors couldn't move into range because they were tucked so far back. Also, props to Kevin for being a super sportsman here, because if you scroll up and look at the top right, when he blew up that transport, he helped me position my dudes so that he couldn't see them and shoot them. Because I just like threw him on the board and I was like, I don't know, I lost my transport. But he was like, hey, if you just nudge him over to the other side of the transport, I can't see you because there's a narrow line of fire there. So that made a big difference because those guys stayed there all game.
That's awesome sportsmanship. Look at that. That is so cool. I love to hear stuff like that. That's great. And Kevin's such a nice guy, man. That's awesome. Kudos to him.
I think Kevin had lost his voice that day too, so we were communicating.
Really?
Yeah, I was only asking yes or no questions, and he was nodding and shaking his head, and he was showing me what he needed. It was a good game. Yeah.
Oh man, that is wild. Look at that. Yeah. Well, that's cool. Very cool. So once he did expose some things, then you just started deleting, I assume.
Yeah, and I wasn't, so I actually brought in from Strategic Reserves those Gravkin that you were asking about, the Thunderkin in the very bottom left, like in the very, very corner down there.
Okay.
It was the turn after this photo, because I knew I needed, so you can see those treasure chests, those are my lay claim objectives. That's the vote objective. If you hold it at the end of the game, you get 5 points.
Right.
So I knew I needed some presence down there, and they should have killed that infiltrator squad, but they didn't. They whiffed. So he was able to get his March from Crag off, which sucked. That's okay. You know what? No, you know what? He, I didn't have enough judgment tokens on them, and he transhumaned and smoke screened. That's why they lived, because he burned 3 CP. But 3 CP for 4 VP, that's a pretty good trade.
Well, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Impressive. All right. So that game
didn't get any Gilliman fighting. Gilliman didn't really make it into battle. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, very cool. So that was another win for your first game on day 2. And then that put you up against, let's see, Drukhari. All right, so this Drukhari list has a whole lot of units also. A lot of min-size witches. And you ended up taking this one 96 to 70. So he still scored quite a bit of points, but it was pretty big points difference at the end because you almost got a perfect score there too. So how did this game feel? Why don't you walk us through this one?
So Ryan was fresh getting back into Warhammer. This was his first 9th edition event. So
Really? Wow, look
yeah,
at that.
yeah. So he was figuring it out. We were both figuring it out. I haven't played against Drukhari since almost a year. So there's a lot of stuff that I had to remember too. It was hyper aggressive. He was hyper aggressive on his turn 1. And that's kind of why he was able to get a lot of points at the beginning. But then by the end, he really didn't have anything left because I was killing lots and lots of stuff. I remember the succubus, the transport for the succubus advanced turn 1, so it did like the turbo 20-inch advance that they can do. And it tried to hide, but it didn't quite make it. So that transport, the succubus and the 2 squads inside, died turn 1 with nothing to show for their efforts. And that momentum loss cost him, I think. I remember getting charged by a bunch of stuff, and he made a really good play targeting the berserkers with his charge, because he basically threw a unit of, it was one of those melee things, witches or incubi, I don't know what it was, but he basically he traded it for the berserkers, which was a good trade for him, because if he had charged something juicier and something shootier, I was going to come back in, charge him, fight, and then fight on death again. So he eliminated my ability to play against him pretty quickly, if I remember correctly, and I thought that was a good call. There's a really nice teleport from the Hearthguard here, and just shooting small infantry squads off of points. That's what they do. They're basically like an Imperial Guard Casterkin bomb, but they cost 3 times as much. They don't do quite as much damage.
Oh my gosh, that's nuts. Oh man, but you can see how helpful that was, even with just those guys too. Just the fact that they're not quite as good, but they're doing so much for you in every single game, even though they're not as good.
Yeah, they're almost always either taking out a priority threat or picking off someone who's holding a home objective and getting a 4 or 8 point swing out of it.
They're a little more durable, though.
They're a lot more durable. They're a lot more durable. I love those Hearthguard. They're 45 points a model, and they're probably worth every bit of it. I think I was chatting with Lewis, who came in best in faction for Votann, and he doesn't run any of them because he thinks they're too expensive. So I don't know. I don't think I could try a list without them right now. I really rely on them a lot.
All right, very cool. All right, so then you ended up in your last game. Are we in game 6 now? Yep. Game 6 against Chaos Demons. Now, Chaos Demons have been giving people a lot of problems. And this was this a Be'lakor list, I think?
Yeah.
So it was Be'lakor, and there are 3 War Dog Stalkers in here too?
So it was Nick's dice were against him from the start here. I remember so he has one of those War Dogs is upgraded with Blessing of the Dark Master, and I was able to blow that up turn 1 from fire from the land fort. And then, because he wasn't too worried about it because they have a resurrection strat, but they can only resurrect if they don't explode, and he exploded. So yeah. So that was really unfortunate. The flip side of it, though, was I exposed my land fort to get that kill. So I ended up with my land fort on the front lines, and I've never played against. This is my first time against Beasts of Nurgle. I didn't realize they do mortal wounds, and they do a lot of them. I also forgot that Be'lakor ignores invulns. So this was, you asked how many times the land fort's been killed. This is the second time they killed it.
Oh man.
But he basically had to commit everything to killing it. So he moved up one of his characters that's a Locust, and he was able to get 5-inch charges on the land fort from Be'lakor and the Beasts of Nurgle. The land fort evaporated, and then Be'lakor evaporated because with demons with 3 judgment tokens on them, bolters do a fantastic job. Bolters, any 1 damage weapon that you have a lot of, if you're rerolling all hits or just rerolling ones to hit with your call around, 20 bolters, that's 10 saves on your demon save. Because you're just auto wounding on force. So Be'lakor evaporated, and I think I nailed a character or two as well in return. And it was kind of downhill from there, but he did stick it out. And I think he was giving me, I thought the score was different than that, but I thought it was closer than that, because I remember the Flamers gave me a bunch of trouble. Even with the nerfs, the Flamers are still pretty good. One thing I learned is that flesh hounds aren't actually that tough if you charge them. I was able to kill them in melee with just some of my basic infantry and my call, which was cool. Oh, he did a really cool thing with resurrecting beasts of Nurgle. There's a strat. It's tricky to play. He had to play it at the start of my morale phase, and then if I failed morale near his beasts, he could resurrect an entire beast model.
Oh, wow. That's neat. And you're right about the score. I copied this over and I failed to change the score. You still won this game, obviously, but it was, as you said, much closer. It was 80 to 67 here.
Yeah, because I remember we got to turn 3 and it was the last game of the tournament, and he was saying, we could probably call it, but I want to see how many points I can get. And it was tooth and nail to the very end. He made me work for it.
Wow. Way to go. Well played for him. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I remember what it was. I would have had 5 more points on lay claim because I zoomed a bike up at the very end, but it was a bike with 1 wound, and I got greedy. I shot his knight next to it and killed it, and he auto exploded to take my bike down and deny me the on lay claim. It was the ultimate fight move. Props to Nick. I didn't see it coming.
That's funny. I love stuff like that. That is so funny.
Yeah. It was a good match. All in all, it was a great weekend. I had it was probably one of the most fun GTs I've played in a while.
Fantastic. That's awesome to hear. All right. Well, I mean, you lost that first game against Clifton's GSC. And he's not only was that a nasty list, but he's a really good player too, and a lot of fun too. He's cool. I like him. But you just went to town after that and just dominated every other list you played against. So that's really cool, man. That's a good job. What about Clutch itself? How'd you enjoy the tournament? You said you had fun with all your opponents.
Yeah, I had a really good time, and I think we had like 6 people from Forge Masters there, so just
good showing.
Getting lunch together, hanging out. It was really good. It was really nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
playing as a team makes a big difference. Team play is a lot of fun because you get to show up with a bunch of friends, and even if like you don't do as well as you wanted, which obviously you did great, but even if you have team members there and you don't do as good as you necessarily wanted, you can still root for other people and see how everyone else is doing, right? Or you just get your whole team's butt kicked and you just kind of commiserate together. But either way, you're in it together, and it really makes a difference. So I'm with Hostile Galaxies team right now, and we have a team that's mostly new players. I've been playing for a long time, but most of our team members have not, and so we've got these guys that are just starting to go to events, and it's really cool to see them start going to events for the first time and start getting their first wins at events, and just that energy and that excitement. We just pump each other up, and it's a lot of fun. So that's really cool. Anyone that's playing that has looked at teams but hasn't really thought about joining one, if you have an opportunity, you may want to get in on that. That's a lot of fun. I know the Forge Masters are an awesome team too. You guys are awesome. We have played some of your guys, and Jay is a good friend of mine too, so we have a good time with y'all for sure.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Ruben.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking the time to walk us through. I'm sure other Votann players are going to get a lot out of this. So any last insights you want to share before we go?
The The beam on the Landford is really, really good. Everybody runs railgun, but the beam is good. Try it out. You won't regret it. That's my last thought for other Votann players.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again,
All right.
Robert. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Thanks. All right. Take care.
Take care.
All right, guys. For anyone else, thank you for watching. I appreciate you guys tuning in and checking out this episode. I plan to bring a lot more. I know we've got Denver coming up, the FLG event this coming weekend, so we'll try to get some interviews with some people from that one. And we'll just look forward to bring in more interviews and more content to you. Let me know in the comments what you like, what you don't like. I'm just starting this. This is the kind of content that I personally like to watch. I love event coverage, tournament reports, interviews with players, and just going through the games that they played. That's really fun for me. And so I figured, if that's the kind of content I want to see, I'll do it myself. And so if there's something specific you want to see me do or talk about, or a format you want me to maybe change in my videos, well, I'm still developing that. So let me know. Let me know in the comments, and I'd be happy to have a look at that and see what I can do. But again, thanks for watching. Please do all the stuff that helps me get the word out. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I got eyes in the back of my head, I'm seeing. Take me for granted and you know I'm leaving. I'ma take what's mine with the webs I'm weaving. I could take this crowd from seeing to believing. Got a taste for blood and my tongue keeps bleeding from the words I spit. So sharp, so freezing, so cold. Behold, frostbite they feeling. I could tear you apart or I could go heal them. Don't believe in fate, don't believe